George Timothy Murdoch, known to the world as Tyrus, once dominated the wrestling ring as a fierce, larger-than-life figure. He was the man who could silence a crowd with just a look, commanding attention wherever he went. However, behind the strong persona and the bravado was a man wrestling with loneliness and inner turmoil. Born on February 21, 1973, in Boston, Massachusetts, Tyrus grew up in a world where he never quite fit in. As a biracial child, he faced rejection from both sides, an experience that left emotional scars that would take years to heal. From a young age, he learned to rely on his strength, using his body as his shield against the world. This sense of isolation only fueled his ambition to prove himself in the world of sports, leading him to a football career at the University of Nebraska. A career shift, from football to wrestling. Tyrus's life took a dramatic turn when a ruptured appendix forced him to abandon his football career at the University of Nebraska. A surgery left him with a limp, taking away the identity he had built as a college athlete. This injury shattered his dreams and left him at a crossroads, unsure of what his future would hold. But wrestling offered a new kind of salvation. In 2006, he signed with WWE, beginning a journey that would eventually transform him from a raw talent into one of the most recognizable names in the industry. His early years in wrestling were grueling, filled with pain and sacrifice. He learned how to push through the physical toll of the sport, using his pain as part of his performance, often smiling through the bloodshed. The struggle behind the characters. By 2010, Tyrus returned to WWE under the name Brodus Clay, a character inspired by the rapper Snoop Dogg, for whom he had worked as a bodyguard. To the fans, it was just another wrestling persona, but for Tyrus, it was much more. It was a mask to hide his internal chaos, a way to deflect the pain that had been building for years. His transformation into the Funkasaurus character in 2012 was a moment that seemed to promise redemption. He was portrayed as a joyful, dancing figure, making fans laugh. However, behind the curtain, Tyrus was exhausted. He was tired of pretending to be something he wasn't, tired of using performance as a mask for his pain. His release from WWE in 2014 left him broken, with no clear direction and no idea what the future would hold. Reinventing himself, a new path in wrestling. Despite the setback, Tyrus refused to give up. He moved to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, TNA, where he reinvented himself once again, this time adopting the persona of a tough, unforgiving fighter. He became known as Tyrus, a character who worked as a fixer for hire, a man willing to do whatever it took to survive. This transformation mirrored his real-life journey, and the gritty character allowed him to continue working in the industry while navigating his personal struggles. His success in TNA was hard-earned, but it led to even greater accomplishments in the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA. In 2021, he won the World Television Championship, and the following year, he became the World Heavyweight Champion. Yet despite the accolades, Tyrus felt emptier than ever. The turning point, meeting Ingrid Rinck. Tyrus's world changed when he met Ingrid Rinck, a woman whose own story of resilience resonated deeply with him. Ingrid was no stranger to hardship. Born on April 24, 1981, Ingrid had already fought her own battles long before meeting Tyrus. At 15, she discovered fitness, and it became her anchor in a world that often felt out of control. As a teenager, she began teaching fitness classes, not out of ease, but out of necessity. In her adult years, she faced financial struggles, heartbreak, and the challenge of raising children on her own. But her greatest test came when her son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, turning her life upside down. Rather than crumble under the pressure, Ingrid built Sensible Meals, a meal prep business designed to help others facing similar struggles. A new kind of strength, Ingrid's transformation. Ingrid's physical transformation was equally impressive. In the process of managing her son's diabetes and running her business, she lost 150 pounds, a journey that reshaped her body and her life. Ingrid's transformation wasn't just physical, however. It was emotional and mental as well. By the time she met Tyrus, she had already become a symbol of strength, a woman who rebuilt her life from the ground up. But even with all her accomplishments, she still yearned for peace. She had been everything to everyone but struggled to find balance in her own life. When Tyrus entered her world, it wasn't the giant she saw. It was the man behind the mask. Their connection was grounded in shared struggles and a mutual understanding of the battles each had faced. Building a life together. Trust and healing. By 2014, Tyrus and Ingrid had developed a bond built on trust, patience, and mutual respect. They weren't two celebrities seeking attention. They were two survivors who had faced their own versions of pain and hardship. When they welcomed their daughter, Georgie Rose, into the world, their lives changed in ways they never expected. For Tyrus, becoming a father brought him a sense of purpose he had never found in the wrestling ring. He found joy in his child's laughter, a joy that no championship could provide. Ingrid, too, saw a softer side of Tyrus as he embraced fatherhood, and their growing family became the foundation upon which they built a new life. Together, they formed a modern blended family, combining children from previous relationships into one cohesive unit. A quiet revolution. New beginnings on the farm. In 2024, after years of living in the spotlight, Tyrus and Ingrid made a life-changing decision. They left the hustle and bustle of Louisiana behind and moved to a sprawling farm in northern New Jersey. The move wasn't about wealth or luxury. It was about finding peace. For Tyrus, the farm offered the first true escape from the pressures of fame. For Ingrid, it was an opportunity to redefine herself and her business away from the name she had carried for years. She decided to rebrand her fitness business, embracing a philosophy of renewal and growth. The farm became their sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world faded and family came first. It wasn't just a home, it was a new beginning, filled with early mornings, homemade meals, and time spent with their daughter, watching her ride horses in the open air. A quiet goodbye to the ring. By 2023, Tyrus had achieved something that few men in his world ever manage. He walked away from wrestling on his own terms. At the National Wrestling Alliance's 75th anniversary show, he faced his former ally, EC3, in a brutal bull rope match for the heavyweight title. The stakes were clear. If he lost, he would retire. Fans saw his familiar toughness, but they also saw something new in his eyes: peace. When the final bell rang, Tyrus didn't protest. He simply stood, nodded, and said goodbye. He had spent decades trying to prove himself, but in that moment, he realized he had nothing left to prove. His legacy wasn't in titles or belts. It was waiting for him at home, with his family. That night, he drove home to his loved ones, content with the life he had built away from the spotlight. A family rebuilt. The journey of Tyrus and Ingrid Murdoch is not about fame or accolades. It's about two people who overcame their individual struggles and built a life together. Their story is one of transformation, of finding strength in vulnerability, love in the face of adversity, and peace in the quiet moments. Their farm in New Jersey symbolizes this transformation, a sanctuary where noise fades and wounds heal. For Tyrus, his greatest achievement wasn't in the wrestling ring or on television. It was becoming the man his family could rely on. And for Ingrid, her journey led her to a place where peace, purpose, and love were no longer just dreams. They were her reality.